La civiltà dell'amore, fratelli e sorelle, costruite senza stancarvi mai questa civiltà. Lavorate per questo, pregate per questo, soffrite per questo.
Buonasera, io sono Alessandra.
Good evening, I'm Alessandra Contin and I'm a journalist. I'm very happy to see so many people here at this session. I've been writing for the Jedi group for about 22 years, and I'm the person in charge of the video game area. I write for La Repubblica, La Stampa, Il Secolo XIX, and I'm also a video gamer. This year, we will talk about video gaming, which is generally a thorny, delicate topic. And there are two guests with me, Enrico Gentina, Serena Mancini, and one of our guests is connected and he cannot be here with us, so he is connected online, Michele Marmo. They are all experts in communications. Enrico is in charge of a very interesting project, and Michele is a trainer, cultural and social animator. So why talking about video games? Video games are currently the main entertainment for several generations, and in particular, generations of people aged between 15 and 30 years, about 15 to 30. We're not just talking about games. It's really people who do not watch TV, but watch Twitch or programs on video games. They follow their favorite content creators. This means that these generations are shaping their imagery, their ideas through this medium. In addition, the video gaming world this year has generated about $200 billion of turnover. And this is only, well, calculated considering commercial video games. However, video games generate a series of skills and competencies because there are a lot of people who are trained to work in this context, in this domain, and these people will really shape the mindset, the ideas of the new generations. So let me leave the floor immediately to Enrico. So Enrico, at some point you felt the need to talk with people coming from different knowledge domains and create this project that is called Put Game. How did you feel this need and why? thank you, Alessandra, and thanks to all the people who are here. Basically, there's the curiosity for this world. I really witnessed the birth of video games. I played video games, and I'm still playing video games, even though I'm not young anymore. And the world of video games has evolved, has been totally changed, and has boomed. It has reached areas that were formerly occupied by other entertainment industries. The thing that I do not like is when, you find some knowledge spheres that are closed. Whereas when we talk about gaming, there are lots of skills, lots of competencies, thoughts, and those who do gaming are actually involved in this. But there can be prejudices, and the idea of Good Game Italy is, let's try, first of all, to find people, because I think that people and relationships between people are at the basis. And let's find people who are willing to investigate that world, and let's set aside prejudices for a moment, and let's try and find the right questions and answers on that world, a world that, as Alessandra was saying, involves a lot of people who spend a lot of their lifetime gaming. And that's where Good Game came from the idea of investigating people coming from different areas, different generations, different worlds. Investigate that kind of world, of context. And the aim is to understand if there are prejudices and where these prejudices come from. And I think that I shall stop here, otherwise I will take too much time, not leave enough time for other speakers. Don't worry, but let's move to Michele. Michele is at home, and I would like to ask him, considering that there are these skills, competencies that are generated by the digital world, and gaming generates a whole series of skills and competencies that might be used in other contexts. You are a trainer, and so, for example, I thought of socialization or problem solving, but what could be the most interesting skills, in your opinion, the skills that one may learn while gaming? Well, first of all, hello to everyone, and thank you for your introduction. There are lots of skills, lots of competencies. And I got closer. I approached this world because I discovered a whole universe that allows to learn more easily a series of skills, but also other emotions. And I wondered, what is the core element in this experience? And I think that the main thing is that we are forced to change our paradigm. Because the online experience is immersive and involves our different perceptions of reality. So it's like saying, let's get into the experience of video games using some skills that are generally older, something that we can learn from the very beginning of mankind through gaming. So the skills are connected to doing and making things, and learning as doing and making, being directly involved, immersed in this reality. And this is also related to the importance that the environment of gaming has. Another interesting element is that this is a relational experience, and this is far from what many people think, because there are also a series of tasks and actions that are there to make us have a specific experience, maybe correct our mistakes, make mistakes, and then correct them, which is one of the most important things here. So this dimension of error, which is generally not so rewarded by our culture. And there is some social relationship, and this is true, especially for the latest gaming modes. There are some research highlighting that there are skills like problem solving and creating relationships that are very strong in video gaming. And then there are other situations in which games are used, to almost treat some anxieties, some addictions. And so there are some negative sides that are often underlined when we talk about gaming, whereas here there is something related to education, a specific tool that can be used for positive purposes. A very last thing, and then I'll stop. There's one thing that really interests me, and that was mainly true during lockdown. We thought of gaming as something accessory, not changing the cultural paradigm and the training paradigm, but there is something that we should ask and wonder. That is how we could redefine the learning processes through gaming and through the experiences of video games. So offering a different experience where I am alive and I act and I experience things, which is different from what very often happens in education. And, so it's a more active and proactive experience than what we generally have in a normal education. Now, Serena, the word metaverse, I don't know if you know it, but it was first created by a science fiction writer called Neil Stephenson. And it was used in a wonderful novel called Snow Crash. It is a fundamental novel for the cyberpunk culture. When we play, as Michele was saying, our experience is an immersive experience. So our body is immersed in a different environment. The first real metaverse in the video game was World of Warcraft. What about our body? When our body enters into a game, is it a sort of extension of our reality meeting the metaverse or the otherverse? Or is this experience, which is immersive and emotional, is it an experience that we have through our avatar that we see on the screen? Yes, when I observe this, when I wonder something about this, I take into consideration two different points of view. From the outside, for example, when I play, I am sitting on a chair or on the sofa, and I have a pot in my hands, and I look at a screen. So the body remains here, and there's something of me opening up on the outside environment, and it has some relationship, some interaction. So it might seem a passive action, that of the body, but we are actually going somewhere else because there is some engagement, some interest, some forms of pleasure, of involvement. There's some parts of us that are involved. There is this binary element, mind and body. But the interesting thing to understand is if we move towards that environment, what comes back and what is here? But there's another thing that we can consider looking from the outside and imagining that there is this possibility of going beyond the limits of the body, of the physical reality. It is true that if I'm there and I turn my look around, the part of me that remains sitting, the body, is emptied of some presence, of some attention. And so it is interesting when we go back to understand what has changed in the body. And this here that we perceive as a physical place is connected to our being and an experience where our mind and our body are put together. So I have no answers, but I think it is important to question ourselves and move the point of view. And there's also something that is subjective. It is important not to understand what remains and what comes back, but be aware of what happens.
Vorrei fare con te un piccolo approfondimento. Non tutti i video.
So, not all games are the same. There are multiplayer and single-player games. Some single-player games are very emotional, and the participation is very strong. And the multiplayer games where your avatar experiences some reality, a reality that is shared. What about the perception that you have in this immersive environment? Do you think that it might be different? What happens at level of intelligence is also interesting. This relational possibility and the fact of solving together problems. It's something that we need because the challenge and the complexity of our time requires this kind of skill, this kind of competence. But again, the important thing, in my opinion, is to make no confusion between the conceptual idea of experience and the experience itself. The map is not the territory. So there is some, training to have relationship, but let's not forget the proxemic relationship that is on a different level. And these games are very interesting for developing some specific kind of intelligence. What do you think, Enrico? Well, let me underline one of the most important words that we have used at Good Game, the word awareness. I think that it is fundamental to be aware, have awareness of what happens to us. Serena mentioned this and what happens to the body when we experience emotions, feelings. Michele talked about games as, getting some training when we fail, when we make mistakes, because you can lose, but then go on and correct your mistakes. This is very interesting. And one of the things that we noticed is that we really need to think about and work on the idea of awareness, also the awareness of the experience of the video game itself. The skills that we can learn by video gaming, it's something that we underlined, but that we have not invented. And the title, Homo Ludens, also explains that the game can be a place of learning, a place for learning. But there's this new element, a very involving, a very engaging experience, a more engaging experience, but we risk to lose awareness and to lose one passage. As you read and you heard in the introduction, we are all trainers. And one of the main things in the training that we provide is that knowledge can be turned into, experience can be turned into knowledge. So I can have an experience and then get some knowledge from that, but we need some action that is related to the awareness, and this is the reprocessing. And the interesting would be to understand what happens to my body, to my emotions, to my mind, and my awareness while I am video gaming in terms of skills that I can develop. Because if I were able to, understand this and to get this from children, well, that would be something that we could celebrate for. Well, we will talk about that later. But now let's talk about what young people do when they play video game. Our children play video game. As for me, I tell you a personal story. My nephew started in Italy, and we have always played together. And when he was 12, we played Carmageddon. It was a game where you ran over people on the street. And he told me, when I grow up, I want to do this. And I didn't know what he meant, but he said that he wanted to make the games, to create the games. So very often, when young people play video game, they're also discovering things that can be a passion for them. So he started this company. He is a video game programmer, and his company is becoming very important at an international level. So my question for Michele and Enrico is it true that while we play video game, we can learn skills? But in particular, how can we harness these skills? And do you think that there might be a way to get some certifications certifying that we have these skills? Well, this is a $1 million question. One of the main topics for Good Game Italia is it possible to develop skills while playing video games? And is it possible to you know, learn different skills on the basis of the game that I'm playing. For example, if I play a video game where I kill people, maybe I have very good reflexes. I only play this kind of video games, you know. Well, that's quite worrying, let me say. But the point is, can there be some way to certify these skills? Let me tell a funny story. Yesterday, some young people here at the meeting interviewed me. They are secondary school students, and they were asking me about my project. And when I told them, maybe in a few years' time in your curricula, you will be asked what video games you are playing. And they stared at me because at the moment they are like fighting with their parents to earn 1 hour more of video games. But that might be an interesting thing, because when we play, we are really true. We use our talents, we develop our skills, and maybe the HR managers in a few years might be interested in this, might be interested in understanding what my playing habits are, to decide if a job fits me, if it's suitable for me or not. Michele, we cannot hear you. Well, now we can. Okay. Well, no, there are two main points. First, how to certify skills. I think that this opens up a whole world, because, you know, in Italy, regions are working on this, but this is a very complex matter. And I'm talking about skills in general, not about video games. But it's very interesting. And you know, there's a Census research talking about the professional perspectives for the economic and social development of video games. So not only from an educational and training point of view, but also in terms of possibilities for the economic and social development of Italy. And the fact that video games might be interesting for development. Maybe it's possible to think of video games not just as some entertainment, but also as something more serious, and that could really help the development. So this is an important point. And the second point is related to what you were saying earlier on about reprocessing. There is no experience without reprocessing, without processing it, and you need to create a setting, a space, an adequate area with adequate characters. And this is related to the main title of the meeting, that is a passion for the person, but also a passion for education, because we said that the generations that play video games go from 15 to 30 years, and so it's a whole world of young people. But the fact is that there is an educating community that should be responsible for reflecting on what can be learned by doing this or that thing. So in our everyday experience, gaming should be at the basis of a reflection of how we could use it for learning and for training. And then there is the issue of the role of adults, of educators. When we play video games, we can perform well, but maybe we need spaces and times in which, parents and educators experience games with their children, with the young people, to have direct experience of gaming, so that gaming can become the real potential to recognize the skills that we have been talking about. Otherwise, the final purpose is limited, and there's a risk because if we do not reflect on what we do and experience, well, we risk to not be able to distinguish that fictional world from the real world made up of real skills and competencies. So I think that this is an important point.
Grazie. Torniamo a noi.
So let's get back to talk about our body and our attention. When we are playing, we usually have a very high threshold of our attention. So I'm talking about my personal experience, and I'm kind of annoyed when this attention is brought somewhere else. I'm doing that as a job for many hours every day, and I need to be careful to many aspects. When we play, where is it focused our attention? And then when we have to conclude what we did, what happens? So Ludos for Ludos, so basically playing to learn something. Where is our attention shifting? Let's try to understand how these games are designed, so basically how we work. Because attention is not something that you can switch on just because there are lights to be followed. So there is a choice behind that. And what we are saying here concerning the experience of video games is actually true for all kind of flow experiences. So all kind of experiences where several different dimensions are involved. So talking about concentration, motivation, but also desire. So when there is something that we strongly desire, either if we play with a video game or if we draw or if we play an instrument, there is something that switches on our desire. So we feel an emotion. It can be for video games, but it could happen also when we read a book. So the attention, I think, should be, we should make a distinction because attention plays a role, and this is one of the components of these involvements. And then there is motivation and desire as well. And we need to be clear from this point of view. Sorry to interrupt you, but with comparison with the book or a TV show, for example, I think that video games are making a step forward, which is the touching one, the touching approach, and the feeling you have when you are immersed within this context. Yes, because they are designed in order to completely involve our feelings. So we have information coming from several different parts, so it's very difficult then to get out of that context because we are completely involved from several different doors. And what happens is that all this information is not absorbed in with an awareness, but there is also a further dimension which is involved, and that's what Enrico and Michele were saying. When I have the possibility to reprocess that, it is the moment where I allow this perception to enter within myself. So I'm basically interacting with all the information that I'm receiving, and in that very moment I am actually choosing what I can let in and what I don't want to come in. So from this point of view, there is also the other way, the other point of view. So also what comes out, it's a two-way street, a two-way road. When I feel something that involves me from several different levels, I'm living the best possible experience in terms of learning. And I think that's the real strength of the video game. When all these functions are involved, I'm actively, proactively focused, and that's the best situation, the best condition for me to start a dynamic and proactive relationship. The point here is how far am I aware at that point? And another thing I'd like to mention is, well, of course, it's kind of obvious that all things that let me forget the basic needs that I may have, well, in that case, we are moving towards something pathological, so some kind of disorder. So we need to be careful here. I think that, however, attention is just one of the components that are involved, and there is a matter of presence. If the presence was complete and active, I would have the possibility to remember and to realize there is something surrounding me, so that I have some physiological needs, realizing that I'm in front of my screen and I've been spending 3 hours there, and it's been too long period. And then we are talking in this case about presence and not about attention. I'd like to move on and to leave the floor to Michele once again. Are you curious? Yes, of course. Well, with Good Game Italia, you are investing a lot on the role of curious people, and I'd like to ask you to explain what you mean by this word curious. And I'd like to ask you also this concept of curiosity and this curious person, once properly trained, could it be involved in a more institutional training process? Because it would be good, in my opinion. Of course it could. But in order to answer to this question that Alessandra was asking, it's very simple now to introduce the concept of the curious for Good Game Italia, because for us the curious people are the people that you saw today around this table. What we're doing here is a real representation, so we can call it a meta-representation of what Good Game Italia is. So there are about 50 people like Michele, Serena, Alessandra, and myself as well that for 6 months on a volunteer basis have been investigating on the video gaming industry, each one providing his own experience, his own know-how, and his own curiosity as well. The symbol of the curious person is the question mark, not a full stop, not other symbols. It's a question mark. So asking questions, basically. We often laugh because we have fun, because during some of our sessions of the Good Game Italia Curious People sessions, there are someone asking questions and the other people are answering with other questions. So there is no real answer provided. This is a kind of a provocation. It's very provocatory. And if we think about how to make this role of curious people more institutional, I think this could be a very important and interesting step forward, to rely on curious professionals for this purpose. Once again, we are focusing on the passion for the person, which goes through being curious and not to judge anyone else, not to judge other people. So being proactive in knowing, in understanding, in investigating with no prejudice. Good Game Italy, after months investigating and sharing knowledges and know-hows, decided that once again there will be operators and stakeholders playing a key role on the 8th of October within an event where many people will be involved. So it's a kind of an opportunity to think to new things and to share knowledges. It will be an online event where 1,000 people that are now joining us and subscribing for this event. You can do that on Good Game Italia. And all these people will ask something. They will be kind of guided, will play on that, focusing on the topic of video games. And all those curious will gather together around this table. So there will be 50 tables, and there will be curious people going around, stimulating questions and looking for answers. The idea is what we mentioned at the beginning of this session. Basically, at the core, at the center, there's always that relationship. Of course, studying is important. Texts, authors are very important, but we believe that within a context of discussion, debate, and relationships, we need to ask questions and to be curious in order to make steps forwards. And the more people we can involve in that, the more we'll be able to achieve our goals. I'm really amazed by the number of people that are present here today with us. And they've been attracted by the topic we are discussing here. So I really would like to go ahead with them, to start a dialogue with them, because so far we have just been telling you things, but I'm very curious to know what attracted you to come here. What are you learning from this session? What is your thought as well? What are you thinking about this world? The world of video games. I don't know if I answered your question. Yes, of course you did. Michele, you want to add something, or we can move on to the next question? Well, I just would like to add a couple of remarks concerning what you asked, if it's possible to have a more institutional approach for the role of curious people. Well, actually, I approached this topic as a curious person because I was, let's say, kind of concerned about the way through which during this particular cultural transitional moment, the risk was not to give enough importance to what was actually happening. So I think that within this context of people and stakeholders that can support this institutional approach, so a formal training matched with a non-formal training and education, I think this is a very interesting operation. This is, we can call them co-workers or operators working with young people with this very strong attention to link and intertwine worlds which are focused on young people, that are relying on educational worlds which sometimes are not, let's say, functional to learning, because we know that young people are used to live in other places, other environments. So I think it's, on the one hand, this idea of having a more institutional approach is good, but on the other hand, it's not very good, because, you know, we were talking about digital operators within the school field, so basically talking about people that introduce technologies within the school. And this is not a new paradigm, but I think it's a matter here to provide the opportunity to these people to get in touch with the news. And I'd like to conclude with the last example. So a change of the paradigm is, for me, the passage from an old approach to a different approach. So in the past, people used to think that the sun was turning around the earth, and then we changed our mind. So it's been a revolution, of course. So this revolution, this was not something easy to happen and to take place. So, of course, the changes of the paradigm require some kind of fighting and some kind of transition. And this is not something that can easily take place. From this point of view, I think that responsibility as adults to introduce these changes within a learning process is something that I think we will have to focus on furthermore in the future. We'll have now a very last question about a very challenging topic. I'll try to be very direct. So video games are a topic that also for media is very controversial. We are reading many articles talking about how dangerous this topic could be. We also need to have, I think, a critical approach. We cannot say that everything is nice, everything is good, perfectly working, but as all things, also video games involve critical aspects. I'd like to start by saying that it's not true that if people are playing 3 hours with a violent game, they will then kill their grandmother, as some articles are titling. But there are, however, some critical aspects. I'd like to ask our guests, what are the most critical aspects in your opinion? Well, I think this question is an opportunity to summarize my speech. Well, the first risk, in my opinion, becomes also an opportunity for further attention, is don't forget about your body. So again, let's get back to our body. Secondly, what you just mentioned, basically, if it becomes an activity that you cannot stop, so be careful when it becomes an addiction. But I'm not talking about that from a moral point of view, but because when people design video games perfectly know how our brain is actually involved and how our brain works, I think this is an opportunity for ourselves also to learn how we work, how we're working. And then, thirdly, I'd like to focus on a warning message. So basically opening a further curiosity, asking a further question, starting from a critical point. I think that technology by itself it's something neutral. There's always this kind of moral approach, moral vision, opposing technology and innovation to the human being, where the human being is something perceived as good, while technology and innovation are conceived as considered as if they were something dangerous and bad. I think actually that technology is something neutral, but however, every digital and technological innovation will bring changes, which may be either positive or negative. And we are changing so rapidly as it never happened before. Over the last couple of centuries, we are really involved by all those changes. So it's very hard to ask ourselves questions about the risks. But it's worth thinking about the concerns that there are at the beginning of this topic, so which is our being afraid of facing what we don't know. We don't have the time to stop. We don't have the time to think about what's happening. And this is something which is concerning us. This is human, but it's maybe worth thinking the fact that this may be the main risk which is involved, I think. So getting back to what is human, getting back to the human experience, asking him or herself about himself or herself and the reality in which we are living. We are living in a period of very strong oppositions. If we think about that, all topics can be dealt with from two completely different points of view. So, Enrico, what do you think what do you think we can identify as the most critical aspects? Well, I'll get back to the topic of the awareness. As Serena was saying, technology is something neutral. Those who have the keys for this technology actually have some interests behind it. The issue is not the fact that companies have interests. The issue is if we are aware of that or not, if we remember that or not. Video games are commercial products, of course. We were saying that at the beginning how the video game industry is actually representing a world accounting for a huge turnover higher than music, TV, and cinema put together at the global level. This is not either good or bad. The bad thing is if I'm not aware of that, if I just think that a certain video game is there just because nature kind of created that. No, it's not the case. This is a product which is sold in a magazine, in a shop, sorry, even though it being a virtual thing, but the person that sold that video game are just aiming at their goal, which is not to do anything bad to me, but just to have a customer, to deal with the customer. Well, when a company develops a video game, and then it depends on the video games, there are many motivations behind that. There are studies carried out to focus on huge inclusion and attention approaches towards the customer, toward the public, toward the audience. So let me just make an example. Life is Strange of Danton, a French company that designed and developed very good video games with very strong topics. And I hope all young people can play with that, because you can realize on your own body what it means to deal with such violent and delicate topics, and you can feel it. It is true that there is this situation, but there's something else as well. And we'll get back to the topic of knowledge, being aware. You need to be aware of that thing. Otherwise, you will miss some things, some parts. And another thing that we are missing and not realizing, in my opinion, this is one of the main risks, is the topic of data. Because when I am playing, I provide all a series of skills, knowledges, and attitudes. And if the video game is getting back that to me, and some video games are finally providing back the data about how you played, this is wonderful, because you are not realizing how quick you have been, how fast you have been, how you can guide, lead a team with maximum multiplayer online with 200 people. This would be wonderful if you can get back a feedback from that, because it could become something you can use with your employer, for example. Well, let me say something different, actually. I don't think that tools are neutral, because I think that the means is a message here, and it's a matter of being very careful about that. We mentioned the brain frame, so basically there is a system behind that modifying the way we know things in this moment, and we said that at the beginning. We are no longer living in a linear learning and knowing process, but this structure, this knowledge structure, is the way we are living within this world. So the means somehow is playing a role in our choices. So I agree with Enrico that awareness plays a key role as well. And another topic which is worth mentioning, in my opinion, and you already mentioned that when you were talking about the polarization of the debates, is that every dimension, every situation can be seen from different points of view. So video games as well, allowing for a lot of social relationships, may involve this risk of being close to within a micro world, and not allowing for a wider approach. So letting us preventing having a public life and socialization. So I think we need to consider that and to keep that in mind, because attention and also the approach young generation have for this world is very important, and we need to take care of young people with specific approaches, with specific supports. So the point here is being careful not to actually take into consideration what young people are learning, what they are experiencing, not taking care of what they are doing, how much time they spend on doing that, risking to reach levels which are too high and not actually bringing benefits to the individual. So once again, the community should be, the adult community should be responsible, because we are often blaming young people for their behavior, but we often forget that there is a responsibility behind that. And we need to be responsible and in charge for this responsibility. So what is the suggestion that we can provide to trainers and parents as well? Let me make an example. There are young people playing online. Maybe many of them are playing with Fortnite, which is involving a lot of emotions. There may be the risk for example, involvement of hate. With online games, it's very easy. So a very simple suggestion. It's very simple. Let's be curious. Let's be curious about this world. Let's explore, because there are a lot of tools online available online in order to understand better this topic. There is an Italian association of video game producers producing a lot of material. We as well, with Goat Game Italia, we published podcasts and debates with experts, and there are a lot of tools available. So there is the real advocacy for curiosity, for know-how. That's the only way you can rely on your own judgment, which can be for sure different from mine, for yours, and for her idea. Serena, well, let's try to consider different points of view, different perspectives. This message is addressed to adults, so please don't just consider things from outside, but try to get closer and see things with the eyes of your children. Michele, very final remark. Well, let's witness. Let's be a witness. So in this moment, I think that the key aspect is to be together. So let's play as adults, and let's play together, sharing experiences. This is the most important thing in this moment from an educational and functional point of view. So share experiences. Let me add a further suggestion as a parent and as a trainer. Please always remember that video games has a classifying system, which is called PEGI, which is stated on the cover, and you can find it also when you purchase online. Make sure that this video game is good for you and suitable for your children. And addressing to the children, play a lot and try to take advantage from the skills that you can develop, because video games can be extremely useful for many different things, also to develop social relationships, and they may help you to find friends and to be very open towards the others. Let me thank you for being here once again. Let me finally conclude by saying that the meeting in Rimini is an inclusive, open, and free of charge meeting. So in order to maintain and to continue having this format, please donate something to this institution that can work only, and also thanks to your donation. Thank you once again for your attention.
Grazie Michele.
civiltà dell'amore. Fratelli e sorelle, costruite senza stancarvi mai questa civiltà. Lavorate per questo, pregate per questo, soffrite per questo.